That's all staff ready? We ready? Staff? Okay, great. Welcome to Litchfield Park City Council meeting. This will be a work study session we're starting off with. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, first item of business, naming a new public library in Hilltop Park. Jennifer, City Manager Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Mayor and Council, good to see everybody. It's been a while since we've all been together. Hope you guys are all doing well. We do have a work study session tonight. Several of us are going to present as part of this presentation. A lot of things we're going to ask you for tonight in this presentation are general council direction. We have several things that we're kind of spinning our tires on that we want to get your temperature, see where you are, and just get some general guidance on moving forward. Okay? So to start that off, first of all, we're going to talk about library. Sorry, guys. So again, several things we're talking about tonight. First of all is the library. Second of all is the naming of the Hilltop Park. And third is the City of Litchfield Park vision statement. None of these are on the agenda tonight for a formal vote. Again, just general council staff direction. Let's see where you guys want to go with this. Naming the new library. So if you guys haven't noticed, the new library is making great progress. It is coming up now. We've had vertical construction for some time. It is on target and finished in August of 2026 as scheduled. So is Agua Fria as well. There's a lot going on up there if you haven't seen it. We would propose to keep the current building named as it is, as of course there's a lot of history here. It was named the Florence Britton Library, and we would recommend that it be named the Florence Britton Litchfield Memorial Building, whatever it may be. As you saw, there was a lot of interest in this building as far as future civic use. Randy's going to get into that in a minute in the presentation. But we would recommend that name stay with this building and whatever use it may be. And that, of course, brings us to the new library. We've had several different scenarios on here. Some of you that have been around for a long time will remember some of this in no particular order. Scenario one would be naming the new library after the late Supervisor Max Wilson. Some of you guys may remember Max. Max passed away a few years ago. He was part of the city council and worked to bring the library to the Hilltop 20 years ago. There's a lot more history there. Max fought really hard to get the library here 20 years ago, for those of you that remember that, and went through a lot here with the council and on board supervisors as well. We did speak with Supervisor Hickman about this some time ago, because obviously we wouldn't have had the library funding if it wasn't for former Supervisor Hickman, and we want to see his feelings on this issue. And he did say that he would like to honor Mr. Wilson by naming the library after Max instead of himself. So we did discuss that issue. Another option would be naming the library the Litchfield Park Library in honor of Max Wilson. That way it stays just the library in general, but in honor of Max or whoever you could choose it to be. Another option would be naming the library after the late O.K. Fulton. Many of you may remember him as well. He may have coached some of you in school here. He was a very well-known educator and coach for a long time. He was also our parade MC for years and years and years.
Or taught us biology.
Sir?
He was a biology teacher too.
And biology. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, there would be other community names as well that we could look at. Okay. Another option would be to schedule a public meeting to obtain the public's input in the process of naming the new library. That's something we could certainly do as well. I will tell you, one risk with opening up to general public input is that a lot of your residents aren't going to know who these names are. Unless they were here, a lot of these people's names, they didn't know them, they won't know them. So something to keep in mind there. For a second. So that's, again, several different options, ways of doing this. We had reached out to council members directly. Some of you don't have an indication either way. Some of you like the idea of naming it for Mr. Wilson. Some of you like the idea of having the Litchfield Park Library in honor of Mr. Wilson. Some of you would like a public input process. Again, we're not looking for a formal vote on this item tonight, but rather what I would recommend that we do on this item is, first of all, that we lay out a structure in how we go about this process. For example, every year we do the annual appropriations process, where we have a list of applications for funding, and then you guys vote on them, you send to the city clerk, and we average those, okay? I think that would be a good process to follow in this case as well. And that, say, for example, we give 2 weeks, say that to February 6th, for each council member to submit, say, 2 to 3 names per council member that you would like to see on the library. Obviously, staff could compile a list of those, and we could vote if there was one name that received multiple votes, we could show that, so on and so forth. And then we could discuss it at the February council executive session as far as how those votes were. Obviously, this is of a delicate nature, so we want to talk about it in a certain way. And if that's the process you would like to do, we could vote on it at the March council meeting. That would be the process I recommend. Obviously, the 2 weeks for you guys to come up with names would be talk to your residents, talk to people that you know, see what they think, get input from them. That way you are talking to them, and there's going to be ideas that you think of that you wouldn't think of sitting here at the dais tonight, right? I think that's a good way of approaching that. Again, of getting public input and putting names together. And obviously we can narrow those down into a shorter list of names. Any questions or thoughts on that general process?
When do you need this by?
Preferably, sir, we'd vote on in March. We have time, though. The library won't open till August.
Okay. So it is possible, if we don't have a name, you could put Litchfield Park Library up there. And then when we do have a name, that could be added.
Yes, sir, of course it could. Part of this is we will certainly have a ribbon cutting in August, sometime around there, and you would want to have the plate on the building at that time. Obviously, it would list the council and in honor of X, whoever it may be. So it'd be preferable that we can order that plaque in the next few months. It takes time to get these things made, but there is some time here.
Any comments from council? Thoughts?
You guys like this process, not like this process? You tell me.
You're just explaining the
I'm
process.
not sure. Yeah, I would have a comment.
2 weeks, have us submit something, you'll bring something back for the next February meeting, another work study.
Yes, sir, that's what I would recommend process-wise. Well, it wouldn't be a work study, sir. I would recommend we discuss names in executive session.
Okay.
But if there's any other process you guys feel like we should do, please, I'm certainly open to discussion.
When we said,
So for now,
Just
you're
a comment.
asking.
I
Yes,
don't
sir,
know.
if anyone has any strong feelings now about the process or any names you feel like we need to throw out there, maybe you don't want to name it at all. These are all things to
Richard
consider.
Watson.
I think, well, personally, I think Max Wilson's the one that I would prefer. However, if, regarding the process, we would want to rank order our choices, correct? So in other words,
Yes, ma'am.
number 1, number 2, number 3.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the most recent Maricopa County libraries that have been built? White Tanks, Goodyear, do they have, are they specially named, or are they just the White Tanks and the Goodyear Library? I don't know.
The Goodyear Library was named shortly after Mayor Lord passed away.
Okay.
I don't believe the White Tanks Library is dedicated to anyone in particular. And there was also the El Mirage Library. If it's dedicated to anyone, I don't know that it is too. You guys know? I don't think it is.
Georgia Lard's name is on the Goodyear label.
I don't think even Tolleson has named theirs after anyone, have they?
It was there just recently.
No, I was too. I don't think theirs is named after anyone.
And that's certainly an option as well. Maybe you don't want to name it in honor of anybody. It could just be the Litchfield Park Library. That's something to be considered as well.
Councilmember Hahn.
I just wanted to make sure I understood the process. So your recommendation is that the public input is conducted by council members?
Yes,
Is that what your recommendation is?
Yes, ma'am.
And is there a way that you would, in your recommendation for us to get public input is to just kind of solicit our neighbors?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Claire.
You know, with, this library doesn't happen without Supervisor Hickman. And if his wish is that it honors Max Wilson, I think we should put a lot of credence behind it, because this building does not happen. The Hilltop as a comprehensive thought does not happen without that. So I think, like Lisa, my first thought would be to go toward Max Wilson because of Clint Hickman and all the work Max did to try and get a new library for the city.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Vice Mayor, the mayor is on the call and his hand is up. He'd like to speak as well.
Mr. Mayor.
Hello, Mr. Vice Mayor. Let me start by.
1 second, Mr. Mayor. We're gonna try to turn your volume up a little bit, sir.
All right, let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
Sorry. He's not coming in through our speaker system, so.
Someone want to call him?
Mr. Mayor,
Is
will
that
you say
up,
something
Paul?
for us, sir?
What's that? Can you hear me or not?
Real low.
There's an echo. There's two instruments, two things.
Yeah. Can he call
I
on his
don't,
phone?
I don't have two things on.
Mayor, Councilmember James is going to call you. We'll try and get you on the speaker on his cell phone.
All right. Hello? Hello?
There we go. Much better.
Hear us okay, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Okay, just a couple of comments. One is, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, for doing an excellent job at getting this meeting started. I'm sure you'll do well for the entire meeting, so thank you for your efforts here. Second is, I'll apologize to the council for not being able to be there in person. I think it's the first meeting I've missed in about 20 years. But I had to have a little procedure done that I had no control over scheduling the time because the doctor's schedule is even more difficult than mine. And so it fell yesterday. So after a day, I was advised by my family that I had to take it easy today. So I only worked 4 hours and then I've got myself attending this meeting. So I agreed to do it by Zoom. So I won't be there to snarl at you, personally across the table. My comments on this is, I think this is not something that is appropriate for a public input meeting. We've had too many situations where, depending on whose names you put up there and who may be suggested in a public meeting that's not, has no filters on it, you have too much opportunity for negative comments that are just inappropriate or are not necessary. So I think this is the type of decision the council needs to go out and seek whatever input you feel like you need to seek, and then we need to make a decision on it. The process of getting a few names from everybody I think is important, because before we decide on a name, then we need to put together a little vetting process, so we understand what the contributions of this individual has been to the community. The history of the city, history of the library, history of education, anything that might be important in this as making a wise decision. Once we have that information, then we can do a vote amongst ourselves and come up with an answer to this question that I think will be accepted by the community and will do the city, will make the city proud. So I favor having the city manager implement this process that he described in his presentation. Thank you.
City Manager, do you have the instructions you're looking for?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Vice Mayor, sorry. I just want to get general direction here.
I think the general direction is you're going to set this for a meeting in February, and we're going to make a final decision. Think about it between now and February.
Yes, sir. We'll move forward.
Can I make one comment? When you said in memory of, or in, how's that worded?
I would say in honor of.
In honor of, it's awkward. It's it's not going to lend itself well to an acronym or to an abbreviation. So I think naming it in honor of someone, if we feel like we need to honor them, we give it that name.
Okay.
Rather than having that extra verbiage in there.
Paige did pull up just a second ago as far as the libraries in the district. And there's actually 2 in the district that are named for people. Sun Lakes and the Goodyear Library, and all the rest of them are just named for the city that they're in.
Does the Goodyear Library have Goodyear Library as the first word so people know what it is and where it is?
It shows as the Georgia T. Lord Library, sir. We can look up the exact title though to make sure.
Is that a county library or a city library?
Towns County.
It's operated by the county?
It is the Georgia T. Lord Library, sir.
Okay, we have a very, very full agenda tonight. We need to get moving here fast.
Yes, sir. I'll move forward.
So this is gonna come back to us next month. We're gonna give you firm direction after we've thought about it a little bit.
That's correct, sir.
Great.
And we'll send you out further information via email.
Talk to some citizens and got some input.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Next item, city vision statement, Yosha Brunson Cool.
Get the hold on.
That's okay. We can come back.
Oh, I'm sorry, we just skipped the whole
No,
lot.
no,
Yes,
sir, it's my
we'll come back.
presentation, not
We'll come back. We can come back to that. Go ahead.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. Last year, council retreat, we discussed a vision statement for the city. And then an email poll followed up asking feedback from council, what you preferred. So we have the option to keep the current vision statement as is. And then 3 options were presented to council. So if council would provide feedback on what you'd like to see, 1, if you'd like to keep the current vision statement, we can do that. If you would like to update it, review the 3 options that were provided, and then provide some feedback as where you want to go from there.
We discussed this at the retreat. Yes. And Councilmember Allen, you had, I think, more input. Most of us on that had some more ideas. What is your thoughts?
I thought that since we were reevaluating our vision statement and making sure that it aligned with our, plans for the future, that it was worth taking a look at. And that's when I kind of drafted something on the fly that I think moves along with our city. So I'm all for updating the vision statement.
Okay.
Did you have a preference for any of the ones that were presented?
I think that I liked option 2.
Which is your draft.
I don't want to plant any seeds, but
Vice Mayor.
Yes, do you mind reading number 2 out loud?
I'm for update.
Councilmember James, do you want to say it again?
I said I'm for updating and I support number 2.
Okay.
Okay, option 2, together through accountable government and citizen engagement, we honor our historic charm to promote community connection through responsible growth for a resilient future.
Anybody else comments?
Let me go back for comparison, sir, for 1 second. These are possible and new statements, just for comparison purposes. This is the current one. Please.
Together through responsible government and citizen engagement, we will preserve the city of Litchfield Park's unique beauty, heritage, and community values fostered by our founder, Paul Litchfield.
Again, that's your current statement. And possible options. Same thing with this one. This is not on the agenda for formal vote tonight. Again, we're just looking for general council direction on this. If this is something if you have a feeling of which one you want, we can obviously put it on the agenda for next month. But again, we didn't want to do that till we had a general direction from you guys.
He's looking for comments from all of us. So we'll start. We have Councilmember Allen, Councilmember Frazier.
No comments.
No comments. Councilmember Clay.
No comment.
I have a comment. I like option 2 a lot, but historic charm to me is kind of what is that? So if you can combine our existing one where we specifically call out, can you go back to that slide, excuse me? The beauty, the heritage, and the community values, I think that's what creates the charm of Litchfield. So I don't know if there's a way of morphing those 2 together. I feel like the other ones were kind of just redundant, saying the same thing, but adding different adjectives. That's it.
And my comments are flip a coin.
Mr. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Mayor, do you have comments, sir?
Can you hear me all right?
I just told my call every time.
Okay.
Okay, I got the phone on again. Hello?
Well,
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
do you have a comment on the vision?
On the vision statement?
I do. Just let me turn this other speaker down. So it doesn't get feedback.
Back.
Yeah, my only comment about all of the new statements feature the concept of responsible growth. And I'm not sure exactly what that means in the context of our city. And it's really, there's two different aspects to that. One aspect, there have been ideas brought, that I've seen around City Hall of trying to annex a significant portion of the homes that are just north of the city, all the way up to Missouri, basically, and kind of squaring the city off along Missouri over to just the other side of Dysart, from Litchfield Road to Dysart. And I personally don't think that is part of the vision of our city, of that kind of growth. I don't think it's responsible, and I don't want it to be implied by the mission statement. One of the things that makes this city unique is that we have a small enough city still that you can know a very large majority of all the residents who live here. And as we get bigger and bigger, that has decreased since the time I came here, when we probably had 3,000 people, 2,000, 2,500 people. Now we've got 6,500, and it's more difficult. And I think that takes away some of the charm of Litchfield Park. So I don't see that kind of growth being responsible. Commercial growth is limited in terms of Sun Health. The Sun Health project is really the last major thing that's going to have commercial/residential growth. And then maybe the 15 acres, hopefully at some point we'll get some commercial growth on the 15 acres owned by JDM. But growth is really not going to be, I don't think growth will be the thing that is the center post of our mission in the future. The center of our vision is going to be, how do we maintain and preserve and make the experience of living in Litchfield Park better? We have had responsible growth, which now gives us a good budget. Now we need to focus on our residents and improving their experience from living in Litchfield Park. So I don't like the new ones that are being suggested, because we're including a term that I don't know exactly what it means. And it may mean in some people's eyes things that I don't support. So that's my comment.
Can we see
those three again?
We have responsible growth in all three of those, and that was the mayor's concern. Council member Brainerd Watson, you had concern for which portion?
I just felt like some of the words were fuzzy. For example, which one was it there? Historic charm. I agree with the mayor's thoughts. I kind of think that what we've got in place right now says it the best. And of the school, that if it's not broken, don't fix it. So all three of these say basically the same thing, just reordered. So those are my thoughts.
Any other comments?
So are we not looking at updating our vision statement?
We cannot take any action at this meeting. This is all information only. But I think that's a decision we need to make. At least give staff some hints as to where they think we're going to go with this.
Can we just, it's like we're gonna do the library, can we just roll it over and then just do a little straw poll vote in a month from now and kind of see where it see where it stands, and then we can just.
Yes, sir, we certainly could. Certainly, again, no reason you need to vote tonight. We can certainly do that, and we can lump it into the same process.
I do want to go on record, though, saying that, Suzanne, I appreciate the effort you went into doing this. I sat beside you while you wrote that. And you didn't have the current one in there with you at that moment, I don't believe. So you wrote a good one. It's good. Don't take this as any kind of criticism.
I'm not. I'm just glad that we can kind of wrap this up, because that was something that was in the back of my mind as kind of something that was left out there that we just never kind of finalized. So whatever our decision will be, at least we will have tied this string off.
So the intent is to finalize this at the next meeting?
Perfectly, yes, sir.
Okay.
So we will send you guys a similar process on this as to naming the library.
Back to the Hilltop Park.
Yes, sir. Thank you, yes, sir.
Maria says the mayor wants to speak.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor?
Are you gonna call him, sir? Did you have, do you have comments?
Mayor, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you either way.
And do you have comments on this also? Any additional comments? Yes.
No, I'm happy, just let it go.
Okay. Now,
Oh, let me turn this in myself. So no, I don't have any additional comments. I think staff can, can take something away from the comments, in this meeting, and we'll see what we can craft to put out and have the council do a straw vote on and get further direction, similar to what we're talking about with the library naming.
okay, next one, Hilltop Park.
Mr. Proch, would you come on up, please? I'm having trouble going back.
While she gets that pulled up, if still Randy Proch, your planning director with a slightly different appearance, so sorry if I've shocked anyone.
I thought you were some young kid hanging around that last meeting when I saw you like the first time.
Young sounds good to me. I remember when I was young. Okay, so and again, Vice Mayor, to your point, there's a lot to talk about. This is the first of 5 presentations from me, so I will be brief as quickly as I can through this. Very similar to the other conversations we're having about naming, not looking for decisions, looking for direction tonight as far as the Hilltop goes. We call it the Hilltop. It's historically known as Rancho La Loma. It's always been Rancho La Loma in the original platting documents, and what was, and the sign that was hanging on that side of that entryway. So you can see the black and whites were from around 1949, 1950. You can see the terraces, all the greenery, all the lush vegetation, and even these photos in color. I think Terry took about 20 years ago, if I remember, of what was, and we're trying to get back to. So certainly, honoring the history, the legacy, and looking into the evolution of this project also, because certainly I don't think anyone of us expected the Hilltop School for the Arts and Theater to come along and be that anchor for us. So we have a number of things already in place, and really we've encompassed as much as we can as far as honoring. So, the museum is the P.W. Litchfield Heritage Center. The gardens are going to be named after Florence Britton at Litchfield. So she'll have a cactus garden again, the rose garden again within the park site. This is a bit of news. Susie's here with me as well. Sun Health is a slight rebrand, going back to the Rancho La Loma name. So they'll have new signs in the building, new signs throughout their campus as well. And of course, our Hilltop School for the Arts and Theater with the peacock as their mascot, thinking back to the days when they were up there. This is excuse the language, this is an upchuck of so many different ideas we've had internally, working names that we've had, names that we've somewhat solicited just from our staff perspective. I'll read them for you, just, the mayor's benefit being online. I'll go from left to right. Paseo La Loma Park, Denny Park, Sunset Park, Dos Hijas Park for Catherine and Edith, Litchfield Denny Park, Hilltop Park, Legacy Park, La Loma Park, Heritage Park, and then the Edith and Wally Denny Park. We see all of these as viable options, but if we've missed one, certainly we would come back to it as well. So again, as mentioned, these have been suggestions. We've a little bit of public, and I'm going to go back to the park names as that is the and this part of the presentation. So if anything jumps out to anyone as the right choice, if anything jumps out to anyone as the wrong choice, we'd like to start narrowing this in a little bit, but certainly look to solicit through the council and mayor, through your discretion, if any of these make more sense than others, or if you'd like time to go solicit from the public as well, we'd be happy to address any questions as well.
Comments, thoughts? Councilmember James?
Kind of feels like, should just go 3 for 3 on this and just, do a straw poll and narrow it down.
Yeah. Anyone else? Comments? I personally like the Rancho La Loma or some version of that. It's historic, but.
My only thought is, we're having so many names already on all the individual pieces within the park. You're gonna have the Paul W. Litchfield Society at Paseo. It becomes a very long.
Is it coming through? I'm muted. Just hanging out and just falling back. Does the mayor want to talk?
He does have his hand up. Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, back on?
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I'm just I gotta control 2 different buttons depending on which button is on and which button is off, or you get feedback. So my only comment is that I think that your comment about keeping it simple and keeping it as part of the clear history of the hill is important. So something that was related to the Loma Hilltop Park or the Hilltop Park is very consistent with what we have, we've had over a long time. And importantly enough, we have influenced the name of the academy to the Hilltop Academy, and also their recognition of the peacock as their mascot is based on stories that we told them about the peacocks that lived on the hill. So they have tried to bring history into their naming also. So it's important, and quite frankly, Yosha might be the best person to help us with some of this. We want to make sure that we brand the Hilltop in a way that promotes its cultural position in our community at large. So I think it's important that we try to pick a name that is consistent with the Performing Arts Academy and the Hilltop Academy, so that we can have a consistent branding between that and the museum, in the community. So that would be the main thing I'd want to make sure that we take some time on, is to pick a name that fits in with an overall branding concept, for the Hilltop.
Any other comments from council members?
I have a couple. I'm gonna say it wrong because I took German, not Spanish. Not a wise decision, but Hijas, how do you say that?
Yeah, you did it
Well,
right.
sí.
2 sisters, is that correct? I think that's gonna be really confusing to people, and it's not the focus of the history. So I have a problem with that. I totally agree with the mayor that this should be the name that kind of pulls it all together and links everything. So anything that's not specific to the gift or to the people, I think is going in the wrong direction. That's my thought.
Any other comments?
Guten Tag.
Yes.
Okay, so this is on the agenda for information only. We do not have any ability to make a decision at this meeting. So this is going to come back to us again at the next meeting. Got a month to think about it, and we'll make a decision.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I think we'll be doing a poll on 3 different items, sir.
Okay, great.
Thank you for the discussion.
Maybe on this one, you ask for one choice.
Next item on the agenda, strategic plan, City Manager Williams.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, something that came out of our work sessions that we had this fall between, of course, the council retreat and the staff retreat was long-term planning. As we get into documents for departments and for the city, as you guys know, we have a general plan, we have a CIP plan. However, to my knowledge, the city has never, ever had a strategic plan. Here we are. So staff started looking into this, and a lot of the cities around us have been doing this recently, updating their strategic plans. So we looked at cities around us. I realized that font is very hard for you to read. It's hard for me to read, but it's in your packets. And when you look at the different points per city, they're all very similar in their points. You'll see on the screen there the city of Avondale, Buckeye, El Mirage, Goodyear, and Surprise. Some of the fonts, the text is a little different, but they basically mean the same thing if you look at the different categories. So we looked at that, and staff put together just a very first blush at this, and we wanted to see what you guys thought of that. If you guys want to move forward, this is something you feel like we should do, we're happy to do it, and we'll put together a big plan. That being said, the strategic plan takes months. It involves multiple public input meetings. It involves council input. This should be a foundational document. It should be a guiding document that this city has as far as what the city is all about. A vision statement is great, but this really shows what are your priorities for the city. It's more than CIPs. It's other things that you'll see, and I'll point those out in a second. It's very important that you get a strategic plan, but it's also very important that it's a living, breathing document that you document annually. You update it annually. It's not something that if you spend the time to make it, put it on a shelf, it's a worthless process, right? It needs to be updated annually if we want to put one in place. So again, that just shows the cities overall. Go to the next one, please. Thank you. So we looked at other cities, and these are our main categories we suggest. This is a very high level strategic plan. The real value in the strategic plan is the subheadings, subcategories. Obviously, we're not there yet. This, again, it's the first push. But our categories we would suggest would be economic development, fiscal responsibility, infrastructure, quality of life, and government efficiency. So staff looked at these and we put in phrases that we thought were important. For example, fiscal responsibility. Obviously, we're known for being fiscally conservative, transparency, cost recovery, reserve policies. These are things that matter in Litchfield Park, right? Same thing as quality of life. I think quality of life is it's an emotional issue of Litchfield Park because it means something different to every person. What does that mean to you? If the mayor was talking, I can tell you he would talk about protecting the neighborhoods. Was one of the reasons the city was founded. Again, quality of life, public safety. Some of you really feel that we're a resort community. That's important, right? Public arts, parks and recreation, water conservation, new city events, and of course the city unique character. These are important things to lay out what the city is and what it's not. Again, first blush, wide open suggestion. You get the idea here. So if you like this process and the way we're heading, we'll move forward with this and start scheduling public input meetings where we'll do like we did very similar to the meeting that Randy just had, where we get public input meetings on these and see what people think. Maybe they like these categories, maybe they don't. Maybe they feel our blush is totally off, and maybe it is. Again, it's a first blush. Okay. But I think it's worth doing. I think it's a good process. Obviously, the eventual document would come back to council for approval. There'll be work sessions on this. Again, it's a months-long process, but it's something we need to do and should do, in my opinion. Again, we just want to throw that out there and get this ball rolling and see what your initial thoughts were. Do you like the direction we're heading? Do you feel this is an important thing? Just, again, general thoughts.
Comments, questions?
Vice Mayor? Mayor?
Is he done with me? Or does he want to?
I have a comment at some point.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Okay, Mayor, you're on.
This is quite a audio thing here. I have adjusted actually all my settings on my computer and Zoom, and it doesn't seem to make any difference. So there's something going on at your end. In any event, I do have a couple of comments about this strategic plan. Having operated, numerous businesses, and some large and some small, strategic plans can be very, very important, or they can be very much worthless and simply their only value is they collect dust really well. And the difference between a good strategic plan and a bad strategic plan is that any strategic plan, before it's adopted, has got to have implementing actions that are measurable and that can be looked at with data, so that as a council, we can look and see, are you actually making any progress to accomplishing the strategic goals that we have set? Or, is this just window dressing and we've talked about things that are, that we're not working on and we're not able to measure? So that's my comment. If you want to have serious consideration for a strategic plan, it needs to take the strategic goals that are adopted by the council and then translate those goals into specific actions, which are going to be the responsibility of city staff to accomplish. And we're going to measure them and we're going to use them as we evaluate your performance. Thank you.
Councilmember Brainerd.
I have goals that are the SMART goals that are measurable, but I also think this is something we do at the council level, that it's not a public input. If we get public input on this, it's going to be laborious. We could end up with people wanting things in there that don't align with our mission statement. And so I just feel like it's something we should take on as a council.
Any other comments, questions?
I have some comments. I appreciate
the city bringing this forward, because I think that strategic plan is important, and I think that
that to before, especially for the long-term direction of our city. I think that I agree with Councilmember Brainerd Watson that it's important that the council be involved in setting these strategic goals. I do think the input of the public is important. I think it's important to get buy-in from them to know that they support these goals that we're setting.
So I think that it's important to
the community. I also think it's important to identify how, as new initiatives arise, how we will balance those against our long-term goals. And I also wanted to say thank you for providing the examples from other cities. I think they are helpful to inform the process, but we just talked about, a vision statement. And I think that that's important to recognize that we have a unique community and we may not fit into a box that, other cities fit into. So I think that our strategic plan should reflect our unique character. And then again, I would like to think intentionally about how we will measure our success towards achieving those strategic priorities. So we should be very clear about the outcomes that we expect. And I think the mayor mentioned this as well, and how specifically these goals tie to our budget decisions.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilman Brainerd?
Agree with Councilman Allen. And when you look at what's on here right now, evolving technology, what does that mean? How do you measure evolving technology, and what impact do we have on evolving technology? So it's got to be very specific, and maybe it's stated in a way that is a goal. I don't know how evolving technology is a goal. And so that's where my struggle is. I also feel like this document needs to springboard right off of our vision statement. And if it doesn't, and that's the level I think we get the input on from the community, is on the vision statement. This is where we want to be. This is what we want to represent. And then this is the how do we get there? And that's something I still feel like the council should do.
Any other comments, questions? I think you've got your direction to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Buckner. I would agree.
Okay, next item, community buildings, public input, presenter Randy Proch. We had a meeting last week. Council members Allen, Brainerd Watson, the mayor, myself were quietly sitting in the back in attendance watching Mr. Proch do his thing. So.
As far as their coat.
Thank you. So, yes, good evening. Once again, Randy Proch, your planning director. Second presentation tonight is on the results of that meeting. One I'm going to go through for you tonight is already on our website. So everything that I'm showing you is already made to the public as far as initial results. I don't want to spoil my presentation, so I'll stop talking right there. So yeah, last week we had about 120 folks, not including all of you and all of us that attended in that room. We're very excited. I had no idea how many people were going to show up, so I was very thrilled to see so many folks. We talked mostly about this building. We talked a bit about the rec center because we do believe that changes here affect changes there. We did want to bring up the St. Thomas Church down at Neoland and cottages 2 and 3, which no longer have a tenant, with Farm and Ranch Museum no longer being part of the Hilltop and Malone plans. So want to go through this quickly just so you had a sense of where the conversation has gone so far, but certainly we have opportunities to continue to provide feedback. So we had 75 unique folks that did ranked responses. And I think Councilmember Ray Watson mentioned this as well. So these results aren't just first, second, third as far as number of votes. As people voted 1 through 5, some of the votes voted 2, 3, 1, 5, 4. That affects and that weights these results. So for the building which we're in currently, the top weighted score was for a senior center, immediately followed by a community center, and then we kind of dropped from there with meeting spaces, preschool, and other. On the other category, I have some of those one-off suggestions, but they weren't enough to make a score of their own in a particular category. I think knowing the clientele or the resident feedback we had, at least at this initial spot, somewhat makes sense that the preschool is ranked so much lower than the rest. I'll go through the rec center and then we'll talk about the one-off suggestions. So for the recreation center, just across the sidewalks here, the top weighted score was for an indoor gym or track. We see this in a lot of the other cities nearby, certainly with Goodyear, Glendale, and Peoria having similar facilities. I don't know if Avondale does actually. Additional sport courts, we didn't want to weigh any particular sport over another because a lot of our courts can do multiple sports. After school activities, I think we're going to see that come up consistently as this has been a housing of sorts for kids after school. Swimming pool expansion follows, and then other from there. So combining these two buildings into all those other suggestions, generally speaking, art and music gallery, lecture series, bridge came up a lot. I don't know why. I don't know how to play. I guess I'll have to learn. Mentoring programs, meditative spaces, wellness, classrooms, theater, planetarium came up. A thrift shop would not be supported, just to get that out of the way, or a senior specific activity classes. This is what was the other suggestions that were provided as well. As far as the church, St. Thomas on the street, across the street from the Wigwam, the highest was for a wedding or event venue. That was a very consistent feedback. I was somewhat worried about all the spouses that were sitting in the audience. Hopefully everything's fine at home and this is for the kids or grandkids. Religious or chapel use followed. Our relationship owning a property that it has a church, I think there'd be limitations, and Joe can let me know also. I don't know if that's an option for us as a government. Arts and culture, and then a quiet wellness space followed. There was one person that provided the feedback. I don't want to exclude anyone, but there was one person that asked for demolition. Some of the other one-offs, again, wedding chapel, community plays, historic preservation, art gallery, venue, quiet or reflective spaces. Just, I think what we've seen in all of these is just use. Just please, let's get it open again and use it. For cottages 2 and 3, again, I'm sorry, that is not the right slide. I'm going to move past that because that is not the right graph. The right graph is on one. But this encapsulates that conversation. Coffee shop, wedding prep space, as we do anticipate weddings or other sorts of events up on the hill. Short-term housing and Airbnb came up a lot in rental cottages for events. I haven't considered this, but for the acts that are at the theater as far as temporary stay, or those that are visiting the museum as far as guest lecturers, a house for them to stay at one of the houses I hadn't considered before. Some of the other things that came up was art and museum space, mini golf. I'm not sure how that associates with indoor cottage, 1,200 square feet. And then Boys and Girls Club, I thought was an interesting one as well. Now, online, and I'll have Yosha push this out as well, the ability to provide feedback is still available. The exact same questions I asked our people that were present with us last week. That same flow and presentation is available on the website. It includes the results as well. We'd ask, tell your friends, tell your families. We'll push it out as well. 75 unique responses was very exciting. We'd certainly like, another 6,000 or so responses on this. That is the end of this portion of this presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
There was a question as to what is cottage 2 and 3.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, and those are the two houses. There are 3 houses on the hilltop. One going for the Historical Society. There's 2 other houses just down below.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Mr. Vice Mayor. Just one small comment. Those of you may have heard this at the meeting. Someone had asked about the possibility of it being a wedding chapel or being a church. If there was interest in the St. Thomas Church and funding its restoration, that issue has been approached over the years at least one time, if not a few times, and there was not an interest there by the church in restoring this church for that expense. So while that's a great idea, there's several residents in the community that are very adamant about this. That needs to be restored as a chapel. If there was a church group that wanted to do that, that's a great idea. But at this time, there's been no interest by St. Thomas in doing that or funding this. Several years ago, there was a startup church that was interested in this space, and I offered them $1 a year lease to use this church for church services. And basically, the ends didn't justify the means for the work that needed at the time, so they didn't move forward. So I think that's important to be understood. It would be great to have a church in here again, but again, St. Thomas is interested in doing that. That's important to understand that. Okay. Also, if the wigwam wanted to use as a wedding chapel, that's great, but it's a matter of funding it. I would tell you that the city can't restore a church to me. To me, that would be a church and state issue. But there's other things you could use it as you saw. Personally, I like the idea of an art gallery. I think that's great. Our community space. But there is a lot of use for this facility. Like anything, there will be a cost. But we do have a staff member that's good at chasing grants once we decide what we want to do with this. And that'd be a good avenue to pursue here.
Just out of curiosity, what is the cost to rehab that building?
When we had this study done some years ago, it was over $1 million then.
How many years ago?
6, 8, 10. This is one.
Before I got here, so it was pre-2020.
One of the issues we had with it is the bell tower is leaning. And we went in and supported the bell tower to keep it from continuing to lean further. That needs to have a permanent fix at some point.
We did an inspection 8 years ago for asbestos and lead alone is astronomical.
Mayor, you have some comments? Do we have the mayor on somebody's phone?
Mayor, are you there?
Your head's turned off. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting some feedback. Let me see. Okay. So the first thing we have to do is get a real estimate on the cost to refurbish the building. St. Thomas Aquinas actually was really interested in having some way to use that building. They had a particular one of the priests at St. Thomas was very, very interested. We actually spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do it, and we had a plan that would have allowed them to lease the building. The problems you run into, particularly with the Catholic Church, is that they don't really want anyone else in the area that is consecrated and, just using it for, purposes that are not consistent with church teachings. So that was a big problem. The other thing that finally sunk the whole effort was just the cost to renovate, the cost to rehab and renovate the church, and they had gotten some actual estimates on exactly what had to be done. So I think that's the first step we've got to do, so we can put a reality check on what we can do with that building, is to figure out structurally what has to be done so that it doesn't fall down. And then what kind of rehab has to be done for lead paint or asbestos or that type of thing, and see what the real numbers are today. And then once we do that, then we can take a look at, what are we going to do with the building? Thank you.
Anybody else, Councilman?
I think we'd run into the same legal issue we almost did with the Boy Scouts, where they wanted the building to be solely theirs and we were gonna build it.
That's right.
And so if we did anything with making it a worship space, available for worship space, it'd have to be available to any type of worship.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's where,
If we were paying for the restoration, that's correct. Exact same issue.
Councilmember James?
Just curious what, we're information only here.
Yes.
So seems like there was some good direction. Is there a way that and I had heard from people that said they got a postcard in their mailbox and that's how they knew about it and that's why people went. Is there a way to maybe send another postcard out and say, hey, we have a survey open. It's only going to take you 5 minutes. Here's go to the city's website and just to try to solicit some more. Because it feels like 75 that,
Yes, we could certainly do that.
just to try to get the feel
Some
for.
more input. Yes, sir, we sure could.
You had about 120 show up and 75 participated.
Vice Mayor, that's correct.
can I,
And the method that you put together, the second time I've seen it used, is fantastic, because everybody sitting in the crowd is allowed to participate all at the same time on their phones through an app. So everything they would type in would pop up on the screen. It was all around, you could see it. And the more somebody said one certain thing, the bigger that word got.
right,
So you could tell an idea of just where the emphasis was.
I'd like to see it include some demographic characters. So if we know that people between the ages of 70 and 90 are interested in, this is their first option versus young families, there's a huge difference in what people want. And the way, when it's all aggregated together, and we know the people that were there were not equally represented or representative of our community. So I think demographic information would be helpful.
Certainly. Thank you.
I would tell you.
Maybe
this
on
way.
your next app
Yes.
presentation, we do some demographics.
So yes, for the website version, Vice Mayor, we can certainly add that as an optional question if people wish to provide that feedback. That'll be a last question at the end.
Just a couple other conditions too on these facilities when you look at these to think about is just site limitations. For example, the Mission Church has no parking. It was built before parking was needed, right? So that's something to be aware of, that whatever is done with that church, it will need parking. Now, we are planning to build parking on Wigwam, as you know, so maybe that solves some of the issue. But if there's certain uses you could put in there, parking would quickly become an issue. Some of you may have seen, I'm not suggesting you do this, but the Taco Guild is very trendy. That was a church that was converted into a restaurant/bar.
Mhm.
That being said, this church is very close to a school, so that does limit as far as what you can do there. But that is something to be aware of. There's commercial uses as well, right? Also, the cottages for the Hilltop. For me personally, I think that one of the cottages should be a police substation for the Hilltop. I think as the school grows, the library grows, the park becomes more and more used, I think we'll need to have a police substation in one of those cottages. We're not there yet. But of course, if there's a better use than that, we're certainly open to it. Just some background there. And we appreciate everything that was done, and you did a great job with the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have the input you need?
I do have the input I need, and I'll take all of this goodwill into my next presentation because it's a bit of a technical evaluation of.
Okay, next item, you're still up.
I am.
Accessory structures compliance.
Vice Mayor, Mayor on the phone, members of council, thank you. Please keep all this good feelings as I go through a very mundane presentation, but meaningful for some. So again, this work study session is conversation. Feel free to interrupt me as needed. I'd be happy to explain anything further for you. This is an ongoing concern for some folks in the city regarding accessory structures. That's a blanket term to mean pergola, ramada, guest house, whatever, the tent, anything in the backyard is just generally an accessory structure. I have a couple of excerpts I'd like to provide for you, just to give you a baseline of this conversation as we go through this. The biggest thing for all of this is 5 feet from your neighbor's back wall, 5 feet from your side yard neighbor's wall, 10 feet from your house. It's this way for fire. It's that simple, because the fire break is essentially that 10-foot limit. If one catches on fire, the other does not. If you're 5 feet from your neighbor, he's 5 feet from you, there's your 10 feet separation as well. This is basically what's defined the separations of these accessory structures from your neighbors, just for life safety, quite frankly. I say that to tell you the opposite in the next number. Screened accessory structures, 120 square feet or less in size, may have a 0 setback. What does that mean? You think of it like a deck box, a little tiny, tool shed, that sort of thing. If it's lower than the wall, can't see it, you can have it against your neighbor's wall. Is that any more flame resistant? I don't think it is, but we do have this exception to that regulation. Now, as you get higher than 10 feet, you need to step back your setback. There's a belief that the visual component of someone who has a structure 5 feet next to your property line is lessened as it gets taller than 10 feet further away. You can go up to 15 feet in height. The other thing that does come up is if you have the benefit or the detriment of being a corner lot, on the street side, you need to be the same as your front yard. Meaning, if your front yard setback's 25 feet, your accessory structure needs to be 25 feet away from the corner of the other street. Essentially, sheds and these sorts of structures should be internal to the block, not against the road. There's one other caveat as far as garages and alley. We have some garages like on Redondo, for instance. Those we expect to see a little bit closer to the alley. The alley separates you and your neighbor. That's not a visual concern or fire concern, as you do have that separation. The other thing that we have is shade accessory structures. I'm still not exactly sure what this means. Joe and I have talked about it. If it means a sail panel sort of situation, or if it means something without a roof to it, essentially, a couple of holes and a net. The other item is you do have some allowances when it's a guest house. We don't permit ADUs. We will never permit ADUs because of our vicinity of a military installation. The base, essentially, we can't have 2 units on one lot. It will always be one. The guest house allowance is for anyone related to the primary dwelling. The other thing that did come up a lot in P&Z, and I'll provide this in a little bit more detail as we go through the presentation, is rear setbacks on properties with side yard view fences shall be equal to or greater than the length of the view fence portion of the side yard wall. If you're wondering why he's asking for a raise tonight, it's for language like this in our code, because I don't know how to provide the right information in these situations. I jest. It is for the houses like you'd think on Bird Lane that have fencing between the lots. This essentially says that if the fence along your side yard is 100 feet in length, you can't put any structure in your backyard. That's a big burden for those that want to use their backyard for these sorts of structures but cannot. Now, everything I'm telling you, I'm sure you can think of 12 examples. You know someone who has this sort of situation. By our stance in the matter, code enforcement is reactive. When there is a case filed, our code enforcement officer goes out there and figures out if there is a violation in tow. All of this is essentially the excerpts of what I've stated already. I'll move past that, but again, if you'd like to interrupt me, feel free to do so. Just a couple of additional standards. 15 feet is the max height. Again, you're 10 foot at a 5 foot setback. As you step back your setback, you can go up to 15 feet, or the height of your building, whichever is less. That's unique to us here in Litchfield Park. The other part of this is on lot coverage. 500 square feet max, or 25% of the rear yard. But again, I can't just say that, so it's No accessory structure or combination of structures shall occupy more than 25% of the area lying between the rear, et cetera, et cetera. There's one caveat to all of this language in the village. Again, I think the village got paid by the word when they went through their entitlement, and there were 14 amendments that followed. They, in the village, can put their accessory structures right up against the course, so long as they are at least a 70-foot width on their lot. So some of those larger lots you think on Village Parkway can have that 0-foot setback. Are you, Councilmember, did you have a question?
No,
Okay. Here's an example of just how that could be. This is in a village. I don't know this one personally, just thought I gave the best example of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half accessory structures in the backyard. This doesn't feel overburdensome because they have the yard to accommodate that sort of example. One of the residents that we've been working with on this has provided a number of additional examples. I'll go through these pictures quickly just so you have a sense of what this conversation is about. The one on the left and right are both the corner lot sort of situations where there should not be any structures along the street. Again, here's two more where it's on the street side instead of the internal side. And then we do have other examples, and some of these examples I have no doubt have been here 15, 20 years, maybe before we even became a city. So there's a lot of situations or conversations that we've had so far. I pull up this to basically tell you we're in line with other cities. What we do is not unique. It's very consistent with the fire regulations that define these sorts of situations. Some have different sort of caveats and allowances because they have the ability to do ADUs where we do not, per the state regulations that have passed recently. So we took all this information to commission to ask two ideas we wanted to present to them. There's one idea to reduce the setback standards. Essentially, we could assume or look to state that most structures are non-flammable and can be closer to your neighbor, which would relieve a lot of the encroachment issues we have. Or another idea was to reconstruct the wall between to make it a firewall, essentially preventing fire from jumping across property. We gave these two ideas to commission, neither was supported. They really want to only focus on instances where there was a accessory structure next to another neighbor. So there wasn't as much of a concern when it back to a golf course or an alley or an open space because there wasn't an impact to somebody else. So when we started doing that analysis to provide that information to you tonight, of the 600 or so, we counted every single one, only about 45 are in a situation where it is directly impacting a neighbor. Now, again, by default, we react to these situations. We don't actively go cite 45 houses. If there is a situation where there is a concern, we'll take that through the code enforcement situation. Now, again, conversations have been regarding the scale of the structure as it impedes on you, the visual impact, and the potential fire hazard. So for you, for this conversation, we've come up with 4 ideas. If I missed it, that's fine too. We can maintain exactly what we have today. We can change what we have today to essentially retroactively permit a lot of these encroachments. We can actively pursue code enforcement instead of reactive, or fourth, essentially respond to enforcement cases when we do get to the phone. That is as quickly as I can make this very dry conversation for you. Hopefully it's a bit engaging. And if you do have any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer those.
What question, City Attorney?
Of those 4 up there, what are the liability issues the city has on picking or not picking any of those 4?
The issue is we've got a number of properties that have non-conforming structures. We've received complaints. So what does the city do about that? Do we make them conforming so that we can address the issue? Do we go and tell them that they have to remove those structures? no matter what the decision is, somebody's not going to be happy. And we're likely to receive some type of complaint or issue.
Well, I guess a little bit, what I was getting at was, I heard that we probably have a 10-foot separation between home walls for the fire code. And if we're allowing people to build up against their fence, now there's a 5-foot separation, which doesn't comply with the fire code. Do we have the right to tell staff not to enforce that?
And you have the discretion not to enforce certain things, but I haven't taken a look at the fire code. I know that many municipalities have 5-foot setbacks in their backyard. And that's in conformance with various fire codes. If we need to, you can always amend your fire code to address specific needs.
So, Vice Mayor, City Attorney, we've handled those for new structures going forward on a case-by-case basis. We've had a few instances where the 10-foot separation was not being able to be met because there's a water line or easement in the way. What we have done internally with our building official is enforce a fire separation wall or construction type to ensure that there is not that situation. So for new structures, we can look at that situation like the elite wood or aluminum wood situations that have the proper rating to lessen that setback. And so in situations we've had so far with folks coming in and doing it correctly, we've had the proper construction materials to prevent that situation.
But from what I'm hearing is there's a bunch of them out there right now that violate the fire code. It could be a health and safety issue to the next door neighbor.
Yes.
And some of those are in complaint stage.
I'd say 4 active cases that we're working through currently. I'd like to state that we do have a number of volunteer code enforcement officers that help our staff in situations that they have passions for.
Say 4 cases in process. What does that mean?
4 cases where our code enforcement officer has at least given courtesy notice or gone to the next levels of concern. As this conversation really started to evolve and there was a direction internally that we present this information, these facts, those cases have essentially been put on pause while we have this conversation to know if there is going to be a change in code. Well, then we don't want to pursue action against a violation if code changes.
Back to you, City Attorney. The fire code is written by a bunch of experts on fire issues. And you and this council are not experts on fire issues. And you said we could change the code, maybe not in accordance with best practices according to those in the fire business. And now we have people that are violating the fire code and maybe have a health and safety issue with neighbors on the other side of that fence or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
Do we really have a right to tell the staff to ignore that? Or is it we have a right, but it's not a really good idea?
No, I'm not saying that you have the right to tell staff to ignore, and I wouldn't ever suggest staff ignore a safety issue. The issue is this situation's become heightened because of the fires in California recently. But multiple different municipalities change and modify the international codes, whether that be the International Fire Code, Building Code, Electrical Code. There are municipalities in the valley that have 5-foot setbacks for rear yard setback. How does that comply with the fire code? What did they do? Did they change and modify the fire code to address that issue? Did they require different materials to be used if you're going to be within a certain distance? So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at. The question would be is with regard to the current complaint, are those current structures, do they pose an immediate risk or harm? What are the materials that they're built with? Is there a way to mitigate any potential fire concerns? So there's a lot of different things that need to be looked at. The issue is it's not just those four. We have a lot more of these structures that are out there, they're existing. What are we gonna do about it? Are we going to take the stance that they're in violation of the code and they need to be removed? You are not gonna get a lot of happy residents.
Two things, Randy. One, what did P and Z say exactly? And two, what's your recommendation?
So, Vice Mayor, I see the mayor has his hand raised too. I'll answer your questions first. P and Z really want to emphasize situations where it's a neighbor to neighbor concern and see how bad is that situation. Hence the 45 is the number of, let's call them extreme cases. The other thing they really wanted to know was if there was any part of the city that was a hot spot. And no, this is proliferated, Greens Village, Sunset Terrace, everywhere. It's pretty consistent around. I don't have a recommendation for you. That's the nice thing about a work study session. I don't have to, and so I'm not going to.
Okay.
I'm here to react how you'd like me to react.
Can we get the mayor on, please?
Mayor, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I think it's important in a couple things. Well, the first thing is staff needs to get our fire people from Goodyear to come down and actually figure out part of this problem. If there's a safe way for us to handle these buildings that are currently encroaching by making changes to the wall or something else that would protect and fire safety adequately in the opinion of our fire department, then I think we can offer that as an alternative to requiring people, to actually make a change in these buildings. I think we've got to find a path that that allows public safety to be protected. But at the same time, we're not draconian and forcing people to take down these structures that have been there. In many cases, these structures may have been there before there was a city. So I'm reluctant to be, poking our nose too much into people's backyards, basically. So I think the place to start is really with the fire department and trying to understand what these setback regulations, how important are they to fire safety, notwithstanding what this universal fire code may say. How important is this really, and can we take steps that would make it safe? Maybe we don't have to do anything. Maybe they would say 3 feet is enough. 5 feet is enough. We need to find out. We need to find somebody. We need to find an expert to help us with this, as opposed to trying to figure it out ourselves or having our staff figure it out when they don't have training to do that. So that would be the place I would start with, is go back to the drawing board and try to get some input from an expert, and then try to take that information and see if we can't craft a solution that doesn't end up being too burdensome on our residents.
Council, any other questions or comments?
Vice Mayor. I just also wanted to point out, we're going to have to look at each situation independently, because there may be, as the mayor mentioned, as Randy mentioned, there may be circumstances where that structure has been there prior to the city's incorporation. And in that case, the structure would be what's called a legal non-conforming structure, where we can't tell somebody because it was legal when they built it, that because we changed our standards, that now they have to remove it.
Yeah.
So if it's a legal non-conforming structure, then there's not a lot that the city can do with that. The question would be is, if somehow a structure was built, was it permanent? When was it built? Was it permitted? Did the city just miss it when they were permitting it with regard to setback? Was that something that was part of the process? Did they build it without a permit? So each situation needs to be looked at independently. But one of the main issues that we've got to determine is whether or not the structure of the property is legal non-conforming.
It would seem you've also got differences in use. You may have somebody put up aluminum pergola probably couldn't hurt anything versus somebody else with a storage shed sitting next to a fence by somebody's house storing gas cans in there. So, I mean, it's gonna be probably a one-on-one analysis. Any other questions, Councilmember
Could it
Watson?
possibly be a benefit to find the ones that aren't conforming and have some sort of documentation added to the legal description of the property, or to something that when it transfers ownership, person knows this is a non-conforming structure and you're responsible for it?
He's asking you, Mr. City Attorney.
There's not a lot that the city can require for deeds on transfers, but we can look into what we can potentially do. I mean, when somebody purchases a property, their title insurance is supposed to cover certain issues like that, but again, we need to find out how many of these are legal non-conforming, and even if a legal non-conforming transfers ownership, that legal non-conforming stays in place as long as the use doesn't materially change. If they change the use, if they significantly altered that structure, then they have to bring it up to current code requirements and standards. So, but we can definitely look at how we can go about making sure that when properties are transferred, that those issues are addressed. But the other issue is we have so many of these. How are we going to address this moving forward with all of the, I mean, how many, Randy, are in place right now?
So, Mr. City Attorney, there are 600 structures. I think 368 total have some form of violation, and a staff of 1 for code enforcement.
Randy has lots of time.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments?
So one question, of the 4 complaints we have, are those new structures, or would these be structures that have been there for 30 plus years prior to incorporation?
Councilmember Frazier, 1 is new, 1 is 5 years old. The other 2, I don't know offhand. I don't believe any would qualify. The other thing, to the conversation, I probably have about 2,500 more paper files in my filing cabinet to go through to see if these structures are or are not permitted. We're actively looking for interns. So I'm going to ASU next month to find some more interns.
Any other comments, questions? You get your direction?
Yes, Vice Mayor, thank you. Next presentations will be much better.
Is there an executive session on this agenda?
Most of there's not.
Okay, so this meeting is over, am I correct? Okay, we're gonna call this one's over. We're gonna start the next one. Let's take a 5-minute break. Start at 7:25. Got